One. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Masud. Today we've got a very special guest. She is an amazing entrepreneur and multiple business owner. I think Liverpool Lets, letting agency, sourcing company, an education company, Inside Liverpool, which I've been a part of, and I think it's a fantastic resource for newbie investors. And also she's all over our social media feeds, which, you know, it's a fantastic thing. But yeah, welcome Vicki. Thanks so much for spending some time and joining me today. So
hi Masud.
Hi.
Hi everybody.
Hi. So initially what I wanted to do, Vicki, is really just to give people an idea of your background in property. So if you don't mind, just share how you first got started in property.
Yeah, no problem. So probably typical story, like lots of people, we became accidental landlords. So Michael and I decided to buy a one-bedroom apartment in the city centre when we were young and carefree. We moved into that in about 2005 it was, and the plan was always to live there for a couple of years and then sell it and make a huge fortune was the plan. Because we had capital culture in 2008 that was coming, so we thought we would make a fortune. But unfortunately the property crash of 2007 had other ideas, and we lost 25% of the value of the property. And this is back in 2005, we had a 95% mortgage, so we were very highly leveraged. It was a city centre apartment, so we had high service charge and things like that. So we just weren't able to sell the property. We didn't have the 25% that we'd lost to give back to the bank. And because it was only a one bed and there was no car parking as well, so I was constantly getting car parking tickets. Because, yeah, literally like every fortnight or something. And we were desperate to move out because we'd kind of outgrown the property. So we tried to put it on the market a few times, couldn't sell it at all. And then I had this glorious idea of let's just put tenants in, because how hard can that be? And a couple of my friends were landlords, kind of not professional landlords, you know, had a couple of buy-to-lets. So we put some tenants in, got a consent to lease from the bank. Ended up paying stupid interest rates for the consent to lease. It was like 6 point something %, which at the time was really difficult to make those payments. So the rent we had coming in just about covered the mortgage and the service charge. So we weren't making any money at all. But it allowed us to move out and then to kind of start afresh. So we moved in with mum and dad, my mum and dad. That we were going to stay for 12 months. We managed, I think, 8.5 or 9 months.
Gosh, okay.
Right, yeah, it's hard moving back in. But we managed to save a significant deposit in that time to kind of start again. My dad was very kind and he matched the deposit that we had. So we had a nice chunk of cash. And then we were a bit more sensible. We went and bought a probate property. Sorry, not a probate, a repossession property. So the house that we still live in now, back in 2010, we bought as a repossession. And that's when we kind of really understood what we were doing. So we were able to add lots of value to the house. We got it for a really good price. And then over time, we've basically just renovated the whole house, put an extension on, put a conservatory and things on the back, and then refinanced that cash out. And we just slowly started picking up one or two little single buy-to-lets we thought they were going to be. We bought back in 2010. Yeah, probably was about 2010. The market was quite good. It was good purchase prices and things. People were still scared after the crash. You could pick stuff up in the auctions really quite cheap. And my dad was a joiner by trade. Michael's dad's a builder. Excuse me. One of our good friends is an electrician. My uncle's a plasterer, and so on and so on.
Very nice.
So yeah, we had the whole. Pardon?
You got your power team already there.
We did, yeah. Although, actually, well, your family can be hard to work with.
That's true as well. Yeah.
And Michael was a trained plumber and gas engineer by this time, so we had all the trades. So we were buying some stuff at the auctions with a view to being landlords, but we didn't really understand the finance. We didn't really understand buy-to-let finance. We didn't know that it was 25% deposit. We didn't know, you know, that there was all sorts of rules and criteria and things. So we ended up actually just selling a couple of those properties on. So we ended up flipping, which at the time we didn't really know that that's what we were doing. We were just buying them, making them pretty, and then selling them to someone that wanted to buy them for a bit more money. So we managed to secure some cash. And then 2013, I had my little girl, and my dad has a brain hemorrhage, unfortunately. So that was a whole year of just like reprioritizing everything.
Yeah.
And obviously we didn't have my dad then to do a lot of the work for us, and we had to kind of take a step back from things. But it allowed us to figure out that actually having a portfolio of single buy-to-let seemed a really sensible thing to do then. And property prices were still okay. They were really quite sensible.
Yeah.
So that's when we kind of got a bit more professional about it, and I went and got educated. So we went on countless courses, probably spent more money on courses than I have on deposits for houses.
Wow. Yeah.
We just, because I think education is one of those things, because we'd gone into everything and made all those mistakes along the way. We'd originally bought at 95% loan to value. We didn't understand the finance and stuff. We got ourselves in a sticky situation with, we tried to buy a property in the auctions on a mortgage, which apparently is a very hard thing to do. So,
yeah.
And it was just every mistake you possibly could, and it was costing us our health in a lot of respects. So because my dad was in hospital for 12 months, I had a little baby girl, I had postnatal depression, Michael and I were both kind of working 24/7, and it was just so hard. So the day that we realised we need to systemize this and be more professional and kind of get a business going here, so that's what we started to do. So then by about 2016, we set up the limited company, and that's when we kind of figured stuff out. 2015, 2016, we figured it all out properly. And then we've just always looked after single buy-to-lets, and that's been our goal, to build a sustainable kind of future for ourselves and for our family. And then my dad passed away in 2014, so we've got that added kind of, I'm conscious that my mum needs some support as well, because she's a pensioner and she lives on her own in a massive big house, and I never wanted to leave the house because it was our family home. So there's loads of reasons for me to kind of create that sustainable long-term business for us. So that's where we are. And then
Good.
I find myself helping other people do the same, hopefully.
What do you think the inspiration behind, or what was the inspiration behind your education company?
So I was a teacher. Sorry, I probably should have said that. So back in my day job, I was a teacher. So back in 2005 or 6, I qualified as an English secondary teacher. So I was doing that for a long time, and that was always being in my blood, to educate and to help and things. And as much fun as teaching is in lots of ways, there's a lot of politics behind it. And it was back in 2013 when I went off on maternity leave that I realised that this wasn't really working out for me anymore, and it wasn't flexible around my family and stuff. So it kind of happened accidentally, the whole educating other people, because it was mixing the teaching, the education with property that we were starting to really get very passionate about at the time. So yeah, that was my inspiration. And I love talking, let's be honest.
Yes, I know. I think just from personal experience as well, I think having been on your property courses and a few other sort of free seminars, as we all know, those are like pretty, well, for a beginner, the kind of, I would say a little bit dangerous to go to, because you don't know what you're getting into. Because you've already been on like those other courses, do you think they've influenced how you're running your own education company? And what are some of the sort of principles that you try and stick to when educating other investors?
It's a hard one really, Masud, because I'm very careful not to, I don't ever want to slate the property education world at all, apart from the fact that I'm a part of it. But I do believe that I got a lot of value from many of those courses that I went on. And there were some courses that I didn't, and there was a lot of courses that I was able to just pull bits and pieces out of. But the thing for us is we never kind of want to push anyone into something that they're not ready for. And that's something that I didn't like very much. So I felt like often when you went on these courses, there was always an upsell onto something else. So they were making a massive business out of the education side of things. And it was always like they gave you 98% of the puzzle. Yeah. And then it was like, if you want the other 2%, you need to join our whatever academy, masterclass, VIP, whatever they want to call themselves. Yeah. And there always seemed to be something else. And to be honest, the first paid for course, because I did loads of free stuff like yourself, podcasts, YouTube, hundreds of books. Yeah. And the first paid for course I went on was a rent-to-rent course. Yeah. And it was Arshalahi up in Birmingham. Yeah. And we spent the weekend, and there was an upsell, but it wasn't it wasn't awkward. It wasn't, no one was forced into it. It was very chill. Arsh was very, very charming guy. I don't know if you've met him or seen him online. He's got a very lovely, charming attitude. And I think he probably can convince people to come on more of his courses. But I never felt under pressure. And I really liked that, because actually we had a little chat at the end. And part of his course was you went for a meal in the evening and kind of connected with the group. And I sat and spoke to him, and I just said, I don't think rent to rent is for me. Now I fully understand it all. I don't think it's for me. And he was like, that's cool, that's fine, no problem. And that was the end of that. And then I went on other courses, particularly some of the ones that are free to start with.
Yeah.
And then you're in their funnel. And by the end of those, I was just watching people like with their credit cards in the air and things and spending a fortune. And I didn't like that. I felt uncomfortable in that atmosphere. And I just thought, surely 20% of these people are going to be asking for refunds anyway. You're taking advantage of people that don't really understand what they're getting themselves into and things. And I much preferred Arsha's kind of like, that's cool, let's just stay friends. And I actually paid for more training with Arsha at a later date for that very reason. And it was a relationship that we were building. And I still know him now, I still chat to him now and again. And that's what I wanted for ourselves, because from an education background, teaching's not well paid. And there's a desire to help. Do you know what I mean? You want people to succeed, and I would never want anybody to spend any money if it wasn't for them. So, that's the ethos that we were going for in our company. And people tend to come back, if they've left the courses or they have a break or whatever, 6 months later, they usually pop back up again anyway, which is fantastic for us.
Yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree with you, Vicki. So having done both the courses and actually gone out and, built a significant portfolio, what would you say is better for a newbie investor to actually, go out and do a paid course, or actually invest money and learn the ropes yourself?
It's a bit of a difficult one to say, really, because it depends on what it is that the newbie wants to do. So I think for some strategies, you really do need to know the nuts and bolts. So for rent to rent, for example, too many people just, watch a few free things, and we get it all the time. We get people ringing up, I want to view this house, and then they turn up and they pitch for rent to SA or something. And I'm standing watching them thinking, oh God, this is awful. And then I ask them about their contracts or their paperwork or things, and they're looking at you like, I don't have any of that stuff. And so I think for some strategies, you really do need to understand, the legal side of things, the contracts and all that stuff. And the courses will provide that for you. And if you've got any kind of mentorship, obviously they will hold your hand through that. If it's single buy-to-lets and it's pretty straightforward, I think you need to know the areas that you're buying in. You need to know what your position is from a cash point of view. What can you afford, and what kind of finance can you get? And you can get that from a good broker. So if you have a good relationship with the broker, he'll tell you exactly what you can and can't do. You need a good solicitor, because they're going to look after you from a legal sense. And most of those people aren't going to charge you for a course, but you are going to pay for their service. And one thing I'd say, particularly for the single buy-to-lets, is pay for quality service for those nuts and bolts. So pay for a good surveyor, pay for a good solicitor. Don't always go for the cheapest, because that's where you'll fall down. So if you've got no education and a crappy team, that's, it's never going to work out. And we lost a deal once because of a solicitor, because they didn't really have a clue what was going on. And we were direct to vendor, and the vendor needed speed, and the solicitor was holding us back, and we lost a really, really good deal. So effectively lost thousands of pounds. So I don't think you necessarily need lots of information like that, but good letting agent, good solicitor, good broker, they're the things. More complex strategies, I think definitely you need some education around how to do those.
Yep, good. And for newbie investors, I guess, because personally, I'm obviously coming from out of town, and I've really done a lot of research over the past couple of years myself, as in the best places to invest. London and the Southeast was a little bit outside of my budget. So I had to look elsewhere. And I think Liverpool was one of the areas which was, low entry barrier and good potential for high yields and potential for capital growth. So as with a lot of out-of-town investors, I guess the only really place to gain information is the internet. And you've got all of these articles telling you that Liverpool is the best place to invest, number one for yields, and you don't really know anything else. And you go to Liverpool, but what are some of the mistakes that you've seen newbie investors make, newbie out-of-town investors make?
Yeah. So people, exactly, you hit the nail on the head. People come to Liverpool because it's a low barrier to entry. So, the yields are fantastic, obviously, but if you've only got a certain pot of cash, it's not even going to touch the sides in London or the southeast or things. So a low value house, if you're picking up a 3-bed for 80,000, for example, and your deposit is 20,000 plus some legals, that's pocket change in comparison to the £1 million houses. But the problem is that they see online these kinds of really cheap houses. So they see the deals being advertised, a 40 grand house or a 50 grand house. And they get this idea that that's the way to go. And for us, we don't veto any part of our city. I never say to anybody, you shouldn't buy there. I will say to you, there's some issues there, there's some antisocial behaviour or things like that. But I need people to understand what they're getting into. So if you're an arm's length investor from down south, and you're not going to be here all the time, and you go and buy a house in a really problematic neighbourhood, just because you're chasing this 12%, 13% yield or whatever, you've got to understand that that's going to come with headaches, and they don't sometimes. They think 12% is like average. It's not. Average now is 7 or 8%. That's pretty standard. So the out of town investors are buying in those very cheap communities where there's high deprivation, there's a lot of tenants on housing benefit, there's antisocial behaviour issues, there's arson, there's graffiti, there's, fly tipping, there's all those problems. And actually, if you costed it out over 3 years or 5 years in terms of maintenance and the call outs and your time, you probably end up with a very, very low yield on some of those. Whereas actually, if you bought something a bit safer, an £80,000 house rather than a £50,000 house, you're probably going to limit, how much time you need to spend thinking about that. And people don't always value their time. I think they think, I can do that, I'll just nip up. But it's an 8-hour round trip, or, overnight accommodation, food, away from home, all of those things that people don't always cost in. So I think we need to avoid the very cheap end, low value houses, unless you're very confident in that space. And we've got some of them, but, we're 20 minutes, half an hour away from many of them, so it's much easier.
No, absolutely. One interesting thing that I picked up on in the last few days, I came across a Facebook post by somebody. It was really funny to me. Who posted in the, I think you have a group, the free Inside Liverpool group.
Yeah, the property community.
Somebody posted, I think it was yesterday I saw it. I'm just getting into property. I want to get my first house. I'm looking to get started in L7. Which was really funny to me for some reason. But I wanted to get your perspective on that because obviously in the last, I'd say 3-4 years, we've seen that area just really, the prices in that area for like 2 beds and 3 beds have really like gone up. How long do you think, or wait, let's just start. So do you think the prices in that area are a bit of a bubble?
Yes, 100%. So you touched on it before when you said people get their advice from the media and from the internet and things, and we see loads of reports getting circulated, and L7 and L6 come out as very high in the yield space, but that's because they're HMOs mostly, and also you're forgetting that you've got all the utilities and you've got extra outgoing higher management costs. And so when you net it down, the figures aren't always that desirable, but people only see that headline. So lots of people turn up and say, I want to buy in Kensington L7, I want to buy in Wavertree L15. And what they've seen is they're the people who are late to the party. They're the guys who are turning up and saying, oh, everyone else is doing that and that's what we want to do. And if you'd been doing this in 2014, you'd be making a really good cash flow strategy for yourself. Doing it now in 2020, you're paying far too much for the properties and you probably can't fill the rooms. So again, it depends on that strategy. Single buy-to-let, we're doing a single buy-to-let at the moment in L6, just outside L7 on the border. And we're going to do well with it because we know our market and we know what the value is, but I'm not turning it into this, 5-bed, 6-bed HMO. I'm keeping it as a little 3-bed single let. So when you said it makes you laugh, it's because you've been there, haven't you? You've done the research yourself and you thought that looks good, and then you get involved and you go, oh, what's happened? There's a bubble. There's an artificial bubble created by all these sheeple, I call them, people who are like, because they're all jumping on the bandwagon and paying too much. They're paying too much for the houses, unfortunately.
Yep. And how long do you think this bubble in L7 will last? And Do you think there will be a correction anytime soon?
The thing about the L7 market is it's so volatile. So not necessarily a bubble that's going to burst completely, but it's always been one of those postcodes that kind of does this up and down, and it comes in and out of favour with people. It becomes fashionable for a bit and then not so fashionable. So because it's a volatile market, you can never look at sold prices and be very confident about, you know, the real value of the houses. And I think that's where the nervousness should be. You should be thinking quite confidently, you know, if you're going to refinance the house, I'm going to get X. If you look, my little house in L6, I'm trying to do refinance now, and the broker says, what's it worth? And I was like, well, I know what I think it's worth. To an investor from outside of London who wants to buy it off me, it's worth a huge amount more. To a mortgage lender, could be worth anything, who knows? Because they've got to constantly look at that market. And within a quarter-mile radius of my little 3-bed, a 3-bed has sold for 75,000, and a 3-bed running as a 4-bed HMO has sold for 165,000. So almost £100,000 difference. So it's kind of like, what's it worth? Who knows?
Yeah.
Particularly for new investors, I think that's too, you know, that's not a market you want to get involved in straight away if you don't know it, because if you put all your life savings into something and it goes wrong and you don't have that cash, you know, to fall back on, it can be a really, really costly mistake. So I'd probably steer people away to some calmer postcodes, more level playing field, perhaps.
Personally, I have an idea of your advice for newbie investors in terms of postcodes, but what are those postcodes that you'd sort of recommend for out-of-town investors to begin investing in Liverpool?
To start investing, the first thing we say is probably don't get yourself a HMO. Like, start with a single buy-to-let, cut your teeth on something like that. Apart from anything, the lenders don't really like people who don't have experience, you know, prior experience. The single buy-to-lets, I'm just writing a blog actually on this very thing. The safest postcode we always say is L13. So L13 is split into Old Swan, Tubrook and Stonycroft. It also touches on Clubmore, but that's not really an area that we talk about that much. And it's just because it does everything that it needs to. It's got a high street, it's got, you know, access to the motorways, it's got access to the city centre, it's got a Tesco, a Costa, an Asda, you know, all of the amenities that kind of working families need. And your working families are your bread and butter in Liverpool. You know, they're not going to move out of your houses anytime soon. They're going to be long-term tenants. Once they're settled in an area and they like the house, they tend to stay, you know, 5-6 years or more. Some of them stay even longer. And you've got a pretty safe investment in that way. And we've seen slow capital growth. You know, you're not going to get the spikes like in L7. You're not going to make a fortune in 2 years. But that's a better thing, because then if we do have any crashes or corrections, you're not going to lose a fortune either. It's going to be this kind of plodding along nice and steady. And the 3-beds there now, you know, some of them are valuing up at kind of 120 to 140. If you'd have spoken to me 2018, maybe they were valuing up at about 95 to 100. So we're getting this slow increase. It could be some investment, but we're also very aware that there's a huge demand from rental. And when there's a demand for people to rent, then the property prices naturally become, you know, a little bit higher because it's a more desirable area. And there's some good schools. There's a few good schools in the area as well. So L13 is one of my favourites. I think it's safe. You don't really get much antisocial behaviour unless you start moving towards the part of Tubrook where it kind of hits L6. So if you stay close to Old Swan, around that Tesco and Costa and things, you're pretty safe. We like L8 as well, Toxteth. L8 is a good little postcode. Most parts of L8 are okay, but you don't want to go too close to Lodge Lane over that side. Again, you can, antisocial behaviour and a few things might mean that your tenants, you've got a higher turnover in tenants. So we, like some of our friends have got properties around there, but they do kind of churn through the tenants every 12 months or so instead of the 3 or 4 years that you're looking for. But they're my 2 little starting points for most people, because can't really go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, unless you pay 400 grand or something.
One thing that I felt also found really interesting, which I've learned over time, is it's not the actual area that's important as an investor, it's the actual road. And of course, L13 and L8 are fantastic areas generally, but you are going to get sort of some bad eggs, which I've sort of learned over time. So what would you say are like your top 3 roads for, let's say top 3 roads for L13? Let's start there.
Okay, so if I had the choice to kind of start again, and if I was doing it and thinking as a new investor, if you're looking at on Google Maps, if you're looking at where the Tesco is in the Costa, and you've got Prescott Road running across, which is like the high street. On the left-hand side, you've got a number of small roads that run off. So you've got like the 2-bed terraces. Sunbeam is the one where quite a lot of houses seem to come up for sale. So you probably remember that name. I got bitten by a dog on Sunbeam Road when I was about 5. So it sticks in my memory. But those little 2-bed terraces are perfect now for those kinds of young sharers, young couples. We've got kinds of the rental prices are nudging up and nudging up. So all of those along there, we've got Fitzgerald, Sunbeam, there's a number of them along that side. If you're looking at where the shops are, if you stay on that side of the roads, they're a little bit more desirable. So like the likes of Fitzgerald and things, the houses are a bit bigger. So on the opposite side, they were always a little bit tattier, like a few more tenants rather than owner occupiers historically. Yeah. So this kind of side is the one to go for. But we've just let a house in Gidlow Road, which is actually on the right-hand side. So there's a few houses along there. We've got Gidlow and Herrick and those, and the little 2-bed terraces. We've just let one of those at 525, and I was a bit shocked that it went so quickly at 525. I did think maybe we were a bit cheeky with the asking price. We got a lot of interest, but the house was completely refurbished as well. So the type of tenants they're looking for, ready to move in, they're not settling because it's only a 2-bed house. They just want somewhere really nice to live. So any of those ones along that side as well are fine. There's, the little 2-bed terraces you can still pick up for maybe up to 60,000 in a poor state of repair. If you want to do a full refurb, they might be up to 85-ish or something if you pick them up on the market and they're ready to go. But along that stretch, that's the one to look for really off Prescott Road. It's a nice little area.
Cool. No, I definitely agree from just your advice as well. It's always been right, actually. What I wanted to say was, I guess the open market at the moment in Liverpool is like so crazy for out of town investors trying to trying to engage an estate agent to try to get a good deal, and 2, actually getting an offer on a house. Because recently I've read again a few posts on Facebook that a few investors have actually not been able to make an official offer because of just general interest from other people. Actually, it was a viewing story. They haven't had a chance to get a viewing or something like that, and then they weren't able to make an offer, and then somebody else came in. Well, to be honest, the estate agents have like hundreds of other investors to pass the deal on to. So what would you say is the best way for an out-of-town investor to actually, let's say, to get a good deal?
So there's a few things that you can think about. I would strongly suggest that you deal with the agents who are smaller agents that might only have one branch, because you can build relationships with those agents a little bit better. Once you kind of engage with the likes of Entwistle and Ben Moores and things, those Sutton Kirsch, those bigger agents, you never know who you're going to speak to on the phone, and they all, work different days and things. So if you try and find some estate agents that have maybe just got one branch or so that kind of specialise in an area. So in L13, for example, if you went into Acumen, for example, they kind of dominate that L13 space. Andrew Louis are a bit hit and miss, but if you find one person in the estate agent, that's the key to it. You need to build a relationship with that one person. So one of our investors who's bought maybe 4 or 5 houses in L13, he's got them all from Acumen. And what he did was, the very first house he put an offer in, had it accepted, told the girl at the point of putting the offer in that he was going to give it back to her for management, for lettings. So she was obviously a little bit more like, oh, okay, so we'll try and help you here. She did exactly that. She got the house for him. He gave it back to her for management. So as soon as that had happened, then she was like, do you want another one? Do you want another one?
Yeah.
Because she retains the management. And for those smaller agencies, that's really important to them. It's a stream of income for them. So it might be that you deal with those smaller agents. If you go to like South Liverpool, for example, we always recommend the likes of Homeshore, or there's another company called Atlas. And again, they're individual branches, they're family-owned companies, they're small businesses, and everybody knows what's going on in the office. when you go to the bigger offices, you pick up the phone, one girl says one thing, one guy says something totally different. So I deal with the smaller ones. If you've got the confidence to go to the auctions, I think that's, at least that is a very clean cut. You know, when the hammer goes down, the property is yours. You're not going to get gazumped. You're not going to get, you know, struggle to view or anything like that, because that's already been done beforehand. So I know people are very nervous about the auctions, and rightly so. But if you're a seasoned investor elsewhere and you just started out in Liverpool, the auctions is a good place, because you've got that, you know it's secured, you know it's yours, it can't be taken away from you. And the same for those kinds of unconditional auctions online. I know they charge a fortune in fees. I know the online auctions are like £6,000 or something, but it's still a very clean cut process. You put your offer in, if you're accepted, and that's the end of that, and nobody else can beat you to it in that sense. If there's any sourcing agents, then generally the sourcing agent setup is, but do check, because they all do different things. They will take a reservation fee from you, or they might charge fees up front. But again, that secured the property for you. You're not going to get into a situation where you're battling to get viewings. But you're right, it's a seller's market at the moment, and perseverance, I think. I know it's hard. I don't want anyone to be a motivated buyer, because when you're a motivated buyer, you pay too much and you buy the wrong thing. And so it's much better to kind of bide your time and spot those deals. L6, if people are looking around L4 or L6, Priory Estates, for example, they're just a one-off estate agency. And if you can build relationships with them and you can offer them something in return, then that's the way to go, either via the lettings, or you promise to buy more houses from them in the future or something. But it's not easy. It's not.
So more, it's going to take more than just a bottle of champagne and celebrations. Okay.
Yes, you said it yourself. There's hundreds and thousands of investors doing the same thing. So the estate agent's very wary about it. I'll tell you what happened. All the courses ruined it for everybody. So the courses, the deal package courses, said to people, go and put an offer in, get it accepted, tie it up, and then sell it on to somebody. And the people who are not very good at that could then never sell it on to people. So they'd had this house under offer, and then the estate agents got wise to that, and they said, no, we're not doing this anymore. So they'll ask for things like proof of funds, they'll ask for an agreement in principle, they'll want ID from you, all those things. So be the investor who's very professional and doesn't come across as one of those little brand new off a course investors, because that doesn't go down well with agents at all.
No, of course. I think one thing I find really interesting is the market in Liverpool is really hot right now. But overall, the general sentiment in the news is that property prices are going to take a drop, and I think that's more to do with like more liquid markets like London. But overall, do you have an opinion on the Liverpool market and what's going to happen in the next 12 months?
Because of COVID, mainly.
Yeah.
So we were already due a bit of a correction across the property markets. If you follow the property cycle, the 18-year property cycle, we were actually already due a correction, and we thought that was going to come because of Brexit, or we thought it was going to come because we had a new Prime Minister, and we were always waiting for this kind of dip more than anything, not a crash. Some kind of correction, and it didn't come. And then here we are in middle of pandemic, and then suddenly people said, oh, maybe this is what's going to cause the dip then. And in Liverpool particularly, you'd think COVID never happened. So if you look at the market now, prices are higher than ever. The demand for rental is through the roof. We've been letting houses in kind of like 3 or 4 days rather than 3 or 4 weeks. So the demand has been really high. And I know from one of our investors who was in the mastermind, and he left and then he's come back and he said, God, I've only been away 3 or 4 months. And he says, and the prices almost have gone up by another 10 or 20,000. That being said, I think that's just because of pent up demand. I think we've got investors who have been stuck, couldn't travel, couldn't come and view, and they've got cash burning a hole in their pocket. But I do think that we need to be careful of the whole unemployment side of things, because we've got furlough at the moment, and people have got this false sense of confidence that they've got cash in the bank and nowhere to go to spend this cash at the moment. But I think when furlough stops, maybe kind of September, October, and if businesses can't go back to the capacity that they had, maybe they're going to have to let staff go, make redundancies, they're going to have to slim down their staff teams. there's going to be people without jobs all of a sudden, and those people that are currently very confident and want to pay $650 for rents and things, it might be that impacts on the housing market, because what happens is when rents start to drop, landlords have to drop their rents to keep in line with what the community can afford. When the rents start to drop, then the house prices start to drop, and we've just got to be nervous about that bit. So I think it depends on what your strategy is. Would I want to be flipping in this market? Probably not, because it's very volatile. Even the buy, refurb, refinance, we've kind of held back from that at the moment, because for us, you're looking at maybe 6 months before you can start, up to 4 to 6 months, and you can start your refinance. Do I want to be doing a refinance in December when, after furlough, at Christmas, when valuers might be nervous about the economy and things? Probably not. So if you're buying it on a mortgage now and you lock in for 2 years, 5 years, then you can ride out whatever is going to happen, I think, in the next 6 to 12 months. But I don't think I'd want to be a flipper. I don't think I'd want to be doing, refinance around Christmas time. That's a bit dangerous. Unless you've got loads of cash in the bank and you don't care what your valuation comes in at, of course.
No, 100%. I think if I probably had a lot of cash, I'll probably look to like London or something. I don't know, instead of going up north. But
the thing about the dip, sorry, just on one more point on that, I know the headline figures say all sorts, like up to 30%, drop in value and things. The only thing I think might happen in Liverpool particularly is you're going to have individuals who are more willing to take a price drop because of their individual circumstances. So if they've got another business that's folding or something, perhaps, I don't think you're going to see it across the board, because we've just got too much demand from investors and things. So maybe London is a bit more, it can take that hit a little bit more. London, the prices have already been so high for so long.
Yeah.
You'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. We just have to wait and see how it plays out. One thing that I kind of was really interested to get your view on is, since the open market is so competitive, I guess the other sort of alternative to that in my mind is going direct to vendor to actually get a good deal. What would you say are the best ways to go direct to vendor, and do you have anything unorthodox to share apart from the phone?
So I can only speak about Liverpool, obviously, but in terms of the Liverpool market, we're seeing it ourselves, because we do sourcing, but we're seeing it ourselves that, we'll put an offer in with a vendor, and then the next thing is, I did it the other day, I went to view a house on Wednesday. I hadn't even got back to do the due diligence, and I had a text message from the vendor to say that he'd already been in touch with Sutton Cash Auctions. So the vendors aren't stupid, they know a sourcing agent is always going to offer lower than anyone else's, because we have to, because that's what we do. But if the vendor knows that he can put it on the open market, so he can put it in the auction to get more money, he's never going to go to a sourcing agent. So they're the kinds of the more savvy vendors. I think we've done quite well with vendors who are kind of, maybe in the probate space, for example. So maybe they're not very sophisticated. They're not investors. They're not landlords or anything. They've been lumbered with a house. Maybe mum and dad passed away or something. And they've got this house and they don't know what to do with it. And they don't want to own it anymore because they've got their own house. And we've bought some probate properties down that route and done quite well with them, because the family just want to get rid of this headache, whatever that is. And they haven't even always got the need or the want to have, put it on the market, let it sit there and get another 20 grand. Because if it's split between 3 or 4 children, an extra 20 grand is maybe an extra 3,000 or 4,000. So, we've done quite well with those because of the individual circumstances again. So I think you're looking for those kinds of vendors. You're not looking for landlords, because landlords are too savvy. They know that they can get more. They put it on with Entwistle and they can get a fortune. So you're looking for those kinds of more situation dependent things. So if you spot, so we do drive-bys all the time. So I don't really source anything. We don't source anything from Rightmove. We do drive rounds and we kind of look for opportunities. So if you see a house that looks really run down, maybe they're very overgrown, very old, old wooden windows and that kind of thing, you can usually bet your bottom dollar that that member of the family has gone into care or has passed away or something like that. And then we go and try and find the owners. So, we look them up on land registry. And then we go out of our way to find who owns that house. We ask about locally. We knock on neighbours' doors. Got no problem with knocking. In Liverpool, we love chatting. So if you knock on someone's door, you'll probably be invited in for a cup of tea. So you kind of, you're more, rather than that blanket approach of just sending out 100 letters, we target specific houses instead. So we put a lot more energy into individual properties rather than, I think on the courses they tend to teach that kind of blanket approach, send out 100 letters and you'll get 10 replies or what have you. We kind of target specific houses that we think are more opportunistic than others. And it's letters that we've been most successful with. So tried leaflets, tried bandit boards. I even had a device that sent out a Wi-Fi signal thing.
Wow, okay.
It was a bit nuts. I sat outside Anfield Stadium with my little device, and apparently it sent out messages. I have no idea whether it worked. I was paying about, I don't know, whatever I was paid for the device, paid about £30 a month for this service. Didn't get anything from that at all.
What is it supposed to do? Sorry, what is it?
It's like it was like this little white thing that you just it sent out you programmed in a message, like a text message, and it sent out that message to everyone within a so many meters radius. Oh. And when I picked it up, I was like, yes, this is a game changer. Yeah. Paid it, I don't know, whatever I paid for the device itself, set it all up, set up my subscriptions, like a fool, sat outside Anfield Stadium, thinking there's thousands of people in there that are all going to get it. Didn't get, in fact, sorry, I tell a lie, I got one text message. Right. So it sent out a message that said something like, I don't know, we buy houses fast or whatever it said. And this one guy sent me a message, and he wasn't even selling his house, he was an investor, and he was like, I want to buy a house.
Oh,
and I thought, well, that didn't work, did it? The leaflet is really expensive. To get leaflets printed, paying for people to deliver them. So the letters are what we've done, but we do things in a different way. We don't send out 100 letters. We send out 10 letters for 10 houses that we're really, really keen to get our hands on. We probably get a reply, 1 in every 10 letters, 1 in every 12 letters. But it's consistency and it's your time, and it's whether you're prepared to do that. But I think in the current market, everyone should be doing some direct-to-vendor sourcing if they can.
Yeah.
Get better deals, absolutely.
Would you actually do the direct-to-vendor, putting out the letters personally yourself, or would you try and get someone else to do it? Because I've heard mixed reviews on, outsourcing that bit and actually doing it yourself.
Yeah, the thing about the outsourcing, if you're going to outsource it, you've got to trust the person that you're outsourcing to. So we do outsource it, but we outsource it to people that we've worked with for a long time. So we do the handwritten letters, we do them in the coloured envelopes, we send them with a second-class stamp, all the obvious things that everyone's been told. But we've got like spreadsheets and things set up, and I think it's the systemization that's important. So we have spreadsheets set up so that we have dates, when the letters have been sent and things, and the people that we outsource it to, they have to update those spreadsheets so we know when they've been sent. I've personally, I keep a track of all of those on a Trello board. I know other people use spreadsheets and different CRM systems, but we've got that follow-up system. And, we've got a guy now who's just contacted us, probably might have even been 12 months ago. I'd say 9 months ago, but it might have even been longer. Time seems to have disappeared lately. Yep. We contacted the guy who had a house for sale, and then when he emailed back, he said, I've actually got 3 houses for sale. And he said, but they're all going through at the moment. They're all in legals. And I just said, okay, that's fine. I said, I've never. And he was like, do you want to come and look at them, pay a bit more? And I said, no, not at all. If it's in legals, leave it at that. And then he popped up about a month ago, and he said, look, the sale on one of these houses is taking too long. And he said, we just wondered if you were still interested. And I said, always. But that's a 9-month, maybe even up to 12-month process. And the chances are, he messaged me yesterday and said he was going to organise for me to go in and view the property because the legal, it's just come to a complete standstill. But the wait time, the lag time, and that is long. And I think a lot of people they want fast. And you don't get fast with direct to vendor. Slow and steady wins the race. Those, the tortoise and the hare kinds of story. But you'll get deals. We bought a house that the vendor has our letter for 3 years.
Wow.
3 years in his drawer. And it was a fantastic deal. It was this gorgeous little 2-bed semi from back gardens, and he'd had the letter in his drawer for 3 years, and he'd had it that long. I'd forgotten I'd sent it. So when he contacted me, I was like, I don't know which house you're talking about.
Yeah.
I had to kind of backtrack and things. And he said, we got your letter this one day. He said, just put it in the drawer. Didn't think about it, just left it in the drawer. And it was his mum and dad's house, and they died. And it took him 3 years to have the confidence to let go of that house, which, and it was a cracking little deal. So, be consistent and stay persistent. They're the 2 keys. You're not going to get a deal tomorrow. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But time can be a big changer for a lot of people. People's circumstances change over time. And if you're the person who's always been staying in touch with them and saying, hi, remember me? I'm very happy, you know, whenever you're ready, I'm very happy to buy the house.
Yeah.
That helps.
Good. I'm just going to check the time, Vicky, because I know we've been speaking for a little bit, but I can't actually check the time on this.
So there you go. Well,
Okay. So let's just say last few questions or last question. If you were starting your property journey again and you had to do something or one thing different, what would be that one thing?
I'd have probably done more deals sooner. So Michael and I were talking about this last night because for the love of money, you can't get good deals at the moment. And it was only really I remember in 2017, we bought a block of flats for 107,000, 3 flats in one building for 107,000. And at the time, we were very pleased with that deal, obviously. But at the time, if something similar had have come up, I'd have been a bit more nervous and said, oh, probably don't want, you know, too many of these in the same area. Now, like 180 for, you know, a similar kind of block of flats. So, and that was only maybe 3 years ago. So you've got to remember that you're putting a 25-year mortgage on these things. And, you know, 5,000, if someone's haggling over 5,000 or something, if you even that out over 25 years, the chances are the property is going to double in value anyway by the time the mortgage comes to an expiry. So I think you need to sometimes think about, you know, just pay that little bit more if necessary because you're holding it for the long term. Obviously, don't do that if you're looking to click. We look at it from a cash flow point of view. So if the deal works now and if it cash flows well and it works for us, then maybe you know, we need to do more of those. We don't need to be worrying about what the future might hold or might not hold, and will it go up in value and is it worth more and that kind of thing. And that same property today is probably worth about 135 to 140, and we've done nothing. We've just cash flowed, you know, for the 3 years. So done more deals sooner and being less nervous at the start, I think. But obviously, don't be ridiculous. Don't run out and buy everything. Be cautious and understand your own level of risk. I think that's important. Because if you stay too safe, you'll never do anything. There's people on our mastermind that have been there for 12 months and not actually bought a house yet. And I think the market's changed in that 12 months and they know it as well. And you can soon become like a professional course junkie or something, not actually do any deals. So do more deals quicker. That'd be my tip.
Good. I agree with that, actually. All right. So, yeah, I think we'll sort of wrap it up there. I really appreciate you taking the time again to just come on the channel and just.
No, it's been lovely, Masud. It's lovely to catch up with you. I haven't seen you for ages.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to the next Inside Liverpool, the workshop.
Classes, yeah. Yes. I don't know what we're going to do. So we were hoping to have one in July, but who knows?
Who knows? I guess we just have to wait and see. Hopefully things start to you know, pick up quicker than usual.
Absolutely. And let's be honest, staying safe is really important for everyone. So yeah, we'll look forward to getting back to normal, but a new normal, new different normal.
Yep. And lastly, Vicky, so just wanted to say, where can people find you if they wanted to? Do you have any socials or anything that you want?
All the socials.
Yeah.
We are, yeah. We're a bit prolific on social media, but I hang out on Facebook, me personally. So we've got other team members who do some posting and things on the other channels and things, and I do dip into them when I can remember. But I'm not young and hip, and I'm not on Instagram as much as like my 18-year-old niece. So Facebook for the oldies, that's what I hang out. But you can always have a little look at our website as well, www.inside-liverpool.co.uk, and then that'll link you through to our YouTube and our Facebook and all those other places. Yeah.
Awesome. All right then. Thank you so much, Vicky. I'm going to call it a day there. Hope you have a fantastic day, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Have a good weekend, Masud. To speak to you soon.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.